everyone's Mo here. So just a quick intro. So basically, I've spent the last decade fixing and building mission critical systems across industries. And if you don't know about this video, basically this is like the second part of how to fix a rack system, which is like an actual case study that I've tried to generalize so people can learn from it better. First part was to explain how that happens, and for this part is the actual repair, like how you're gonna fix the issue for your rack system. So let's go. So for this video, I'm gonna assume that you already watched the first one, but if you didn't watch the first one, just a quick recap here. So basically, for this situation, a company that had an AI, the basically the whole job of the AI is to answer questions over their own documents, which is like a normal RAG system here. So basically, you're gonna ask a question. The AI would find the white pages to write you an answer, and it would attach the citation of that answer. And for their case, basically, the testing for this scored like 95%, but just like a week later, when when their internal team start using this tool, uh, that actually dropped to like less than 44%. So also on top of all that, like two contractors already like looked to that system. Both said like the same thing. They need to like to build the model, and one of the contractors told them like this would require 4 months. The other would told them this would take 6 months to rebuild. However, the actual fix of the whole all like the issue of the system only like took actually like 5 days. So now you may be asking like why this would be matter to you. So like these two guys like they're not like amateurs, basically that's what they do for a living, and they were not like trying to deceive like the customer. They just like were aiming at the wrong thing here. So everything I'm gonna show you here is what the 5 days fix really was, and I'm gonna lay down exactly how you can use it on like any system, not just like for rack system here. So you can adapt this to whatever system you already have, and whatever type of problem that you're trying to fix right now. So hopefully you find this helpful. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Okay, so let's start by talking about this one. So basically, like this is like the most important idea in the whole video. And if you would only get one thing, I want you to get this point here. So basically, like when an AI gives like a wrong answer, everyone in the room would point at the model. Like they would say like the model is broken, we need to fix the model, or maybe like we need to rebuild the model here. But the actual thing is like the model is just like one piece of the whole puzzle, like of the whole system and how it works. So let me walk you exactly like through what actually happens. Let's say like when someone asks your like system question here. So for this case, it's a rack system. So let's say for example they would ask like what's our refund policy for enterprise customers. So step one is this user would ask the question. Step two would be like the system would goes and would grab some documents. The system would think it's relevant to this question. And for step three, it will like put these documents in order, and it would guess like which one is the best in terms of these documents that he already gathered. And for step four, now the model would read like all these documents and writes an answer to the user. And for step five, it will like stick like citation to support his answer. And for step six, person on your team would read the answer, and then would goes and like go like and acts on this information here. Maybe like he was gonna tell something to a customer for this case, maybe like he's gonna make a call, whatever. So like basically these like the 6 steps, and also like the 6 places that where like a rack system can get wrong. And now here's like the part like gets more people, and this part is like that 95% score for accuracy is yeah, maybe many people would think this is like accurate thing, but most of the time this score would be like only measured on one of those steps here, not all of them. So most likely it will be measured for on step 4 here. So the model would write an answer, would be checked against a fixed list of test questions, and that's it. So so basically, if like the problem is any of the other like 5 steps here, the score would have no idea here because it was never looking there. So that's why like we build the model is usually like wrong. What you end up doing is like you're just like you're building one box that most likely was fine here. Okay. So so basically, if the fix. So if you like you want to fix this system, if it was not like about rebuilding the model, then what's the actual fix here? So to fix a RAG system, basically there are mainly like 4 steps, and I'm gonna like show them to you in order, because like the order here matters a lot, and basically they will be ordered like from the cheapest and easiest first, then like the most expensive one, like, and more difficult to implement. So for step 1, what you need to do is basically like you need to find which part is actually broken in the system. Step 2 is you need to make sure you're measuring the right thing. Step 3 is you need to build like a check that catches the problem, and this is like a huge one here. And step 4 is you need to keep it from breaking ever again. So now I want you like to notice like the cost here on the right. So the first like 2 are basically free, like the third one costs like real money here, but the fourth is like in between both of these. Like this is like the whole point here. Like the expensive contractor, what they want is like to do a full rebuild of everything, and most likely like the actual fix is free or like super cheap. And yeah, so let's start by talking more in depth about step 1 here. So how basically you're gonna so basically like how you're gonna find which part is broken in the system. So for this one, what you need to do is like you need to find which part is broken, and here's the thing that like nobody would ever tells you here, because like when your system gives like a wrong answer, they're not spread out evenly, because like they can basically what happens like you most of the time is like they would clump together, and it's not like it's wrong 10% of the time across the board. Most likely it's like it's badly wrong in just one specific corner and totally fine everywhere else. So your job here is like not like even like a technical person, but even like a decision maker. So and how you're gonna guide your team to solve this issue is you need to find which corner is broken in the system. So if you find it, if like basically like if you find this corner and basically you 90% find the actual fix of the problem. If you skip this, what happens is like you just like end up rebuilding the whole thing just to patch one small bad spot of the whole system. So now let's move to the next one. So now let me show you exactly like what I mean here, because like this is the trick. So what I want you first to look at this chart here. So basically like this is the same system, but like I broke the score part by what kind of documents the answer came from. So as you can see like here, contracts was getting like almost like 94, policies 91, specs 89. All these 3 are healthy, totally healthy, but like for these like the average like scores, if we're gonna like do everything, the average score would be like 88, which is like looks great, and that's like a number that would be shown in the dashboard. But I want you to focus on the bottom bar here, because scanned BTFs like only got 41% accuracy. So what that means is like anyone would like be asking a question about scanned document, it like it would guess it wrong more than half of the time. So now you may be asking like why no one ever like noticed this? Because simply like scanned PDFs are just like small slice of the total type of documents in this system, and let's say like a disaster for those people like for the scanned PDFs one, but it's actually like only like tiny dent on in the whole average score of 88 here. So what I want now is like to make it this like make it more real for you. So basically like let's say a bunch of your old contracts got scanned many years ago, and maybe like somebody photographed them, and like maybe like to you and me they would look like any like any type of documents, they look fine. But what actually happens for your system is there's just like pictures, and what ends up happening is like they cannot read the picture as cleanly as they would read the typed text. So what ends up happening is the system would fumble these answers. It will do that super quietly. It will not even like tell you. And if you're gonna look at the dashboard to measure like analytics about the whole model, the average would hide this issue completely here. So here's the lesson that I want you to learn from this one. So the fix wasn't just like a better number here. It was like just like breaking each number into more numbers. So the second like you break one score into many, the broken parts like stop hiding and start like showing up. Like this example for this client was the scanned PDFs one. Maybe for you it's about different type of documents. So start by doing this first. But now you may be asking like how you're gonna break it apart. So the way you do that is like what you need to do is like you need to cut along the lines where your reality actually changes here. So basically how you're gonna do that is like you need to use like you need like to focus on use like question types, for example like simple what's the number the lookup is like totally different from just saying combine these three documents question, which both of these questions would break differently in terms of type of data that you would collect. You need also like to break them down like by document type. So clean text versus scanned, like we just saw in the previous one. You need to break down by age. So let's say for example answers from recent documents versus old ones. And just like remember, like this is exactly where our stories problem was hiding here. You need also like to break them down by how deep it had to dig. So for example questions answered from the very first result versus ones where the right page was buried down the list, let's say hundreds of other pages before the desired page. You'd also like to break it down by team. So let's say for example different teams would ask different types of questions about like different types of like different parts of your own stuff. So you need always to start by breaking them around and group like by each of these different measures here. And like now here's actually like how you use this when you hire, let's say someone to fix it, or if you want like to fix it internally here. So what you need to do first is like you need to add, let's say let's take the contractor example. So what you need to do is like you need to ask them this specific question, which is like show me the accuracy broken down by like what varies in our business, like not just like the overall number. And a good like hire here would actually like already would do that, or if they didn't do that already, they can just like build it in afternoon. Like it's not like a huge work here. But if they like only ever like show you just like one big number and that's it, then that's your tell. That's someone who hasn't actually looked up, and most likely they will not be able to fix your system. And also like these tools at the bottom here, like evidentially like checklist and so on. Those are like the names like real person would reaches like for to do these things. Like you don't need to know how they work, just like know that someone who does this for a living knows these words exactly. Like evidently, checklist, slice line, domino. So yeah, you can use these for your hire to fix this problem. And yeah, let's move to the next slide. So now this is about step two here. So basically what you need to do is like you need to make sure that you're actually measuring the right thing in the first place. Because here's the trap here. So you can find the broken corner, fix it, and the system will still fail. The reason of that is like because the number you were watching was actually measuring the wrong thing all along. So before like you just like spend any money fixing things, you just like you need to make sure that you're like the target is actually real here. And here's like an idea here. Like basically every number is standing in for something it isn't. So that 95% accuracy it was standing in for people got correct answers at work. But those aren't like the same thing here because like they're connected by bunch of assumptions, but the gap between these two answers is actually like where things start actually break, as you can see. And if you're gonna talk about this, there's actually a name for this issue. It's like well known. It's called like Goodhart's law. This like would sounds fancy, but actually it's like so that simple. So the moment the number becomes the goal, people would find a way to make the number go up. That like and it would go up for sure, but that would have nothing to do with what you actually wanted in the first place. So let me like give you the clearest example here. So basically, let's say a kid studying for a test by memorizing last year's answers key. So what ends up happening is like maybe their test score would goes up, well, like I mean like way up if the exam would repeat the same test. But if you're gonna see if they're gonna learn if they did learn anything from that or not, the answer is no. They just like learned the answers of specific questions, didn't learn any actual helpful thing. It's the same thing here. So look at this curve here. So that's like the same thing happening to your system here, how the machine learn and how the AI would learn. So the yellow line is the number. So what ends up happening usually is like you're gonna push harder here, and yeah, you're gonna keep seeing like this number going up and up and up. Always it's climbing. At the same time, like the orange line, which is actually the actual quality of the system, it will goes up for a while and then just like quietly it will just turns up and it will goes heads down. It keeps going down and down and down while the numbers keep like just going up. So the gap between the yellow one and like the orange line. So basically like yeah, the gap here because like the yellow would still like climbing while the orange falls, and that's like our green dashboard sitting on top of like a system that's actually getting worse. So for this, like the move is super simple, and actually it's free, or at least won't cost you a lot of resources. So what you need to do here is like just like you need to make like whoever's fixing this write down in just like one sentence what each number is actually standing for, and like half of the times what I've seen is like the problem is obvious. The second it's like just in plain words here, because like most likely like nobody had ever like bothered to write these numbers and what they actually means down in the first place. So just like by knowing that the problem is 90% like yeah almost we understood where the problem stands. Okay, now like specifically like for rack system, um, actually like accuracy here is actual total garbage word because it's not just like too blurry and that's it. It's actually like because like retrieval system breaks in like three specific like in three specific places, and what you need to do is like you need to measure all these three places here. One is like did even like find the right pages, and this is called recall, and it's like the silent killer most of the time. Basically like think about this: if the answer is hidden in a document that the system would like never pulled up in the first place, what ends up happening is like your system would not be able to answer correctly, and it cannot even like quote a page that never been opened in the first place. Second thing is like where the pages it found actually useful or not, and were they like in a good order or not, or was like the just like the other case and was like just the right page buried under a lot of junk here, and this metric called precision here. And third one is like basically did the answer stick to what was on those pages, or does just like the AI make up stuff. And third thing is this is the metric called faithfulness here. And here's like a thing that will trip you up because like you may have like you have like to read recall and faithfulness together, because like a system that just like refuses to answer, it may like looks perfect in terms like of faithfulness, but it actually like never makes anything up because it barely says anything in the first place. And meanwhile like recall has totally collapsed in that scenario. So just like one number read on its own, is what ends up happening is it just like lies to you. So what you need is like you need to read all these three as a pair, like together. And one more thing here is like you need to check the test itself. So if the test questions somehow leaked into what the system was trained on, then that's not like that's not like understanding anything. It's what's happening is just like it's remembering the answers, and just like look at the kid's example from earlier on. It's yeah, that's like the kind of leak that pumped the score up by more than 20% while the system haven't learned anything. So fair question here is like how do you know it learned this instead of just like memorizing it? Basically, how do you know if actually learned this thing instead of just like memorizing it from the answer from the test? That's critical here. And now let's move to step 3. So for this one, it's actually like big one. Like this is actually like the actual repair what happens. So the first two steps, like what happens there is like you basically found the problem, and it like pointed you at, and like basically like pointed you at the specific place where you fix. And this step is like the thing that fixed that, and the thing that stops it from quietly coming up again. And if you do like nothing else from this whole video, just do this one here. Okay, so here's like the idea like this whole step turns on, and like almost everyone, like even like the smart technical people would just like mix these two things up. Okay, so basically like there are two completely different questions, and that like you can ask about your system. So question one is it up? Is it responding? Is it fast? Or are there any errors? Second one is the answer right or not? And these feel like the same question, but they are not even close at all. So let me show you exactly like all that monitoring your ops like team stares at all day. Stuff that keeps software running. It just answers question one here, and basically like is the service responding or not, but it has no idea whether the answer is correct or not. And just think about it let's say like smoke alarm that only checks its on battery. So basically what happened is like the smoke alarm will say like battery's good, lights green, everybody relax. But it's not even like actually smelling the actual smoke here. So just like telling you it's powered on, nothing more. So look at like these two dials here. So the left one is green, 200, okay, fast responses, no errors. Basically here like everything your team would be watching is looks healthy. But the right one is the question that actually matters in your case for the system, which is like actually like is it right or not? And there's nothing there like question mark, nobody's watching it and nobody knows even like what's going on there. And like your system can answer like in a third of a second with like a clean green light, like there are no errors anywhere, and like hand every like single user confident wrong answer at the same time. So building the second dial is the repair here. So now you may be asking like how you're gonna build it. So to build something like that, you need basically like you need to build something that checks the answer against reality. And for that like you need like three layers. First one is golden set. Second thing is like shadow and canary. Third thing is we're gonna talk about later. So let's start by talking about the first one here. So this is like just like a list of questions that you already know the correct answer to. Think of this like an answer key. So like real ones that you can actually trust. So every time like anyone changes anything, you run those specific questions and check. Did we still get them right? Or not? So in our story, this one like thing would have caught the problem in just like day one. Second thing is shadow and canary. For this one is just like fancy words for like super simple idea here. So basically like before you give a change to everyone, you need to test it quietly on real traffic without showing anyone the results here. And after that, what you do is you're gonna give it to like 1% of the users with like an automatic undo button if it goes bad. So you don't flip it on for everyone and just like pray it would work. Third thing is like, and this is like the one that actually matters most, which is like a human looks. So a person would like read small sample of real answers, maybe like one or two out of 100, and check them against the actual sources and see. And the last one is actually like the most expensive part, like the most expensive layer here, because like it's like the one teams that always would cut first, and it's actually like the one that matters the most, because it's like the only place like when real truth would actually enters the system in the first place, and everything else is just like automatic. It will just like get checked against what those human would actually found. So I want you to look at this diagram here. So the answer would comes out and gets graded into like three different ways: the answer key, the human, and the automatic guarder. So these are like three independent checks, and those names at the bottom, like as you can see right here, Regas and like Golden Set, etc. These are like the tools people would use for to do this like for real. So if you're gonna hire someone, then you need to make sure they understand at least one of these tools here. Okay, so now like the single most important rule in this like entire video here, and honestly like the one question that will tell you the most about like whoever you're gonna hire to fix this thing. So the check that cannot be the same thing. It's basically like the check cannot be the same thing it's checking. So what that means is like you cannot let the AI grade its own homework, because like if you use the same AI to write the answer and to judge the answer as well, it's just like what goes easy on itself, and I don't mean it like that, like just like a figure of speech here. We can actually measure that. And what happens is like it prefers longer answers. It prefers its own writing style, and it will just like write that one like that's so high against all the other types of answers. And to give you an analogy here, basically it's like letting a student grade their own exam. So of course, what happens is like they were gonna give themselves like A plus. Duh. So now look at this like two pictures here. On the left, like the wrong way, the model would write the answer, then the same model would grades it. So basically, just like loops back on itself and just like would keep the same blind spots twice. And on the right here is like the right way, so the model would write an answer, and then someone like something else would grade it. And maybe like different model, or maybe like different model plus like a human check-in sample, something like that, which is like always the best way. It's like having both like AI and human in the loop, especially in like in the building phase. And for this one, like here's like the sharpest question. So you can ask it like in plain English here, which is how do you check that the answers are right, and what is doing and what actually like is doing the check in itself. If like the answer would come like in some version of, oh, the AI would check itself, then you just like found your actual problem, and it's just like standing right in front of you, but you just like you didn't notice that yet. So the good answer like would have like three things in it. So an answer key, a human looking at samples, and grader that is not the same thing as that would be that is grading the thing. Okay, so now I want to be straight with you here. So because like anyone good will be here at this situation. So sometimes you can't actually know if an answer was right like until way much later, or maybe like never. So for example, let's say like let's say like okay, let's think let's see this example here. So think about a loan. So you don't know if proving it was the right call until years down the road. Or let's say for example fraud. So you didn't just like find out it was fraud until the chargeback shows up months later. So when the truth like shows up late, you can just like grade it in real time. So what happens is like people fall back to estimating quality from indirect clues here. And actually like there are super clever tools for this. Like one of these tools is called like NannyML, and for this tool, for example, is like actually like yeah, this tool and other tools are so useful, but at the same time like they have like blind spot, and I wanted to be like aware of these blind spots. So for these tools, they can like tell you when your incoming questions would start looking different, but they cannot tell you like when the words correct like answer would be changed underneath you. Um, like meanwhile like the questions like would look exactly the same, and that's like unfortunately like the most dangerous kind of failure there is here. So like here's the tell. So if someone promises you fully automatic certainty, like no humans, no writing, everything handled, then they're just like overselling, and honestly they're just like bullshitting you here, or maybe they just like don't know what they're doing. So the honest version is like should have like always like a human in the loop, and should like admit that where we cannot actually see where are actual our blind spots in this whole system. So if someone tells you the second one, then you should trust them, because that's like that's the only correct answer in this situation for this type of systems. Okay, now let's type here, which is like just keep it fixed, because like here's the catch here. So everything we just like did like describes your systems today, but rack system would answers like from pile of documents, and that pile It's always changing, it's always updating. More will be added to it, more will be removed from it. So the fix that we just ship today, let's say you already solved that, it will just get rolled gradually. It's like simple entropy, yeah, everything goes to the grade, and unless it stays maintained. That's the rule of the universe on everything, on every type of system. So the last step here is just you need to make sure that you're gonna find out before your user do log. So how you're gonna figure out when your system is degrading, so you can fix it before it leads to a total disaster here. And this is honestly the most quiet one, because nothing would actually breaks, no alarms, no error, the system already fixed. So it will just start slowly drifting away from the word it learned, and just gets a little more wrong every single week. And there are two different types of drift here. One is actually super easy, and one is super nasty. So the easy one is the questions that will just start looking different. So you can just see that that's already common, because the input would change. And the nasty one, which is the questions would look exactly the same, but the right answer would change. So let me make this real for you. So let's say, for example, you updated your refund policy back in January, but the old policy document is still sitting in the system with no changes. So basically nobody pulled it out. So what happens is the system would keeps answering with the old rule, and the question would looks totally normal. The answer would sound confident. It's just the wrong answer for now, because and honestly nothing stripped here, because nothing looked wrong in the first place. So look at the chart here, the same system, two different outcomes. So basically the average line that's no rechecking, it just keeps bleeding down week after week, quietly getting worse until total disaster. And the green line here is that's rechecking on the schedule. Basically it's gonna dip, that's total normal entropy, and then you're gonna cache it, you're gonna fix it, it's gonna it's gonna pops back up, then it's gonna dip again, catch it, fix it, up again, over and over again. That's the whole life cycle of how you're gonna maintain this RAG system. Basically these two different scenarios are for ones both are for RAG system here, or many different types of systems as well. This would apply to it. So the only difference is whether somebody would even bother to measure on the schedule or not. So the fix here for this thing is it's not about being clever here. Just having a clear calendar. You need to check every X time, X days, against your baseline or regularly, and there's a measurement for it called PSI. So but the threshold for when to worry is honestly it's a judgment call here. It's just pure experience. I cannot tell you when you need to worry or not, because it depends. It depends on the scenario. There's no magic number for this one. So if just someone quotes you an exact magic number here, it's some kind of law, then they're just bullshitting you. And here's the most important rule for this step here. The one that would separates the careful people from the reckless one. So when the drift alarm goes off, you need to wake up a human. You must not automatically rebuild the thing, and here's actually why. So at least half of the time the alarm is going off because something broken in your data plumbing, not just because the world just changed. So maybe, for example, let's say somebody upstream changed the file format. So what happening is the alarm would fires, and if you just set up automatically to retrain the second that happens, then you just would retrain the system on pure garbage here. So automatically while everyone thinks it's smart enough to fix itself, which is not that's not even the case. Never. You need always like you never need to do this thing. It's stupid. So so just like ask this one for whoever like was gonna handle this part of the system for you, which is like what happens when a drift alarm goes off. If someone tells you everything would be automatic, then they're just like bullshitting you here. Because like the actual like good answer here is should always like have a human in the loop. Like some like a human should look at why before anything gets even like rebuilt or a model gets retrained again. Okay, now we need to get to take like a step back here. So let's look at the whole thing now. After I walked you like through each of these steps. So step one, like you slide the score because the average hides the broken part. Step two, you made like sure you were measuring the real thing, not like just like fake numbers standing in front of it. Step three, you need like to rebuild like a real check against like reality, like with a human in the loop, because like live it's never been like the same thing as right. And step four is like we need to put it in the calendar, so basically so it does not just like quietly get beaten down and roll it. And so basically basic rule of entropy here, you need always to maintain, otherwise everything would go to decay. And yeah, so basically like now look at that cost column again. None of it like is a rebuild here. It's like just like days of work, not days like maybe weeks max of work. We're not talking about months or even years here. And just like the one part that costs real money is actually like still way cheaper than rebuilding a model for 4 or even like 6 months. So like that's the whole reason the rebuild recommendation was wrong in the first place for this situation, because the real fix was like way cheaper and more aimed at specific angle that the model has nothing to do with it. So the rebuild was an expensive choice and aimed at the wrong part of the system that actually was working in the first place. Okay. So now like here's what you actually walk away with from this video, because you're not like a super technical person. You're not like just gonna rebuild this by yourself. But what you can do is like you can ask about it, and you are the decision maker. So you are the one who's gonna spend the money, one who's gonna allocate the resources. So at least you need to understand, and you can actually like tell from tell like how like someone with answers whether like they really get your problem and they can actually fix your problem or not. So here's the list here. So first thing you need to understand like how did they rule out the other 5 steps, not just like the model problem. If like they tell you you need to retrain the model, then you need to ask them this. You want them to show you like the accuracy broken down by source and question type and age. Also, you need like to understand if they're measuring recall and faithfulness, or maybe they're just like measure like one blended number across all 3 metrics that we talked about. And you need also like to understand how they know if like the model actually like learned this instead of just like memorizing some pre-made answers. And you need also like to understand if like how they check like the answers are right or not, like, and also like what's actually doing the checking for this, and also like are there like any answer key, like does a human read the sample, how often. And then like the big one is like the move that would beats any fancy resume here, or like any type of fancy seller is you need to ask them this one question, is like what does your approach actually miss. So the person who actually like really does this for a living, who actually understands this, who actually like built this many times, will have like quick specific answer here, because they live with this limit every single day, so that's a well-known limitation in their psyche. And the person who's just like overselling you, who's just like bullshitting, will just like tell you it just like don't miss anything, it's just like perfect, which is always like bullshit. Nothing is perfect. And yeah, basically that more than any like type of credential, resume, or any type of portfolio would show you. This answer would tells you exactly if someone is worthy, someone who's actually able to fix your rack system or not. So that's all. That's how you gonna fix like your system. If it's like already like lying to you with just like green light, but underneath it's like just giving some wrong answers. This one was specifically, let's say, for like rack system case, but can apply on many other types of system as well. So the takeaway here is you don't need to rebuild the whole system. You just like you need to build the thing that would have caught the light in the first place. If you do that, you need like to slice the number, measure the right thing, and check it against reality, not with like a human in the loop. And you need to keep checking on a clock basis, like on a schedule. And yeah, basically, if this video was useful, if you like gonna take anything from this video and go ahead and fix the system, then that's the whole goal of this video here. So basically, like the first part of this one explains why all this happens. So you can go watch that if you didn't watch it yet. And yeah, that's it. If you like this, like, subscribe, and see you in the next one. Small. Bye.